So I'm going to read you guys some numbers and just a couple questions. How many of you drove to church today? How many of you drove? You got in a car and you drove here. You drove yourself, you had somebody drive you, you got in that car and you got here today. All right, thank you. How many of you, when you got in that car, you're like, today I could die. Today I might get in a car accident. Nobody? Well, the chances of you getting into a car accident are 1 in 366. So out of 366 drivers on the road, you, that one, okay, thank you. There was a possibility that you could have gotten into an accident. Let me ask you a different question. How many of you have ever been on an airplane? Okay. How many of you got on that airplane and said, I might not reach my destination? Sometimes. There's a lot less hands. That's the moral of it, though. In 2019, there were 86 reported accidents amongst commercial airplanes. I'm going to be honest. I was on an airplane. For those of you who've been on an airplane, they give this little speech, like presentation on like what happens if the airplane goes down. Let me tell you guys something. I popped my headphones in and I knocked out. I did not even hear that presentation. I was just so confident that this pilot was going to get me to my destination. I was just going to sleep and wake up wherever I was supposed to be. How many of you have been on a boat? Any type of boat? A rowboat? A ferry counts. It's over water. At any point, did anybody think this boat might capsize? This boat might turn over? 2 people? 3 people? 4? I could tell you, this summer, I went on a cruise. Do you guys know how big cruise boats are? Those things are huge. They're massive. They house like thousands of people on one single boat. And I'll be honest, the entire time I was on that boat, I slept peacefully. I did not worry if that boat was going to turn over. I did not worry if we were going to get stranded. Even though it's happened, I was not concerned at all. I didn't even go to, like, they had like a little thing at the beginning where it's like you can meet your captain. I didn't even know who the captain of that boat was. I was just so confident that that captain was going to get me to my destination safely. And then I was with a friend, and I thought, what if we had this much faith in God that we have in the captain, that we have in the pilot, that we have in the person who's driving the car, that we have in the car itself? People's cars break down all the time. Nobody expects their car to break down. But we have faith that that car is going to reach us to our destination. We have faith that that plane is going to get us to our destination. And I'm thinking, gosh, if I had that much faith in God, if I put that much weight in God the same way that I put in these people, imagine how far I could be in life. In Mark chapter 11, verse 24, it says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. So I'm like, okay, I just have to believe. That's it. It seems easy enough. Some of my beliefs are, one day I'm going to become a doctor. I believe in my heart that I'm going to become a doctor. I believe one day that in this English service, though you probably can't see it now, I believe one day I'm going to come in and I won't even be able to find a seat. It'll be just that packed. So I just want to ask some people, what are some things that you believe in? Anybody willing to volunteer? Like a hope, a dream, something that we can't see right now, but you know that it's going to happen. Auntie Marcy?
We'll go home and embrace my mom and dad.
Amen. Amen. Anybody else? All right. But sometimes when we pray for things, we ask God, like, hey, God, this is what I want. This is what I believe. I pray for my future every day. And, I believe, and then continue on my day. But sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, do I really believe? Am I just saying, am I believing or am I wishing? Because you can wish for things. And when you wish, you can doubt in those wishes. Because when we ask for God, we truly have to believe in our heart of hearts that it's going to happen. Sometimes I know when I look at some of the empty pews, I'm like, this place will never get filled. But I still say I believe that it'll be filled. In James chapter 1, verse 6-7, it says, but when you ask, you must believe and not doubt. Because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. This is a part that I really struggle with. Putting my weight in God the same way that I put my weight in other things. I'll use myself as an example. So I'm straight out of college, and like every person who's out of college are looking for a job. I was looking for a job to give me like clinical experience. For those who work in healthcare, I need patient person experience. I've been looking. I only have my degree. I don't have any healthcare certificates. I don't have a medical certificate. I don't have a nursing certificate. I have none of that. So my options are limited. So I applied to this job. It was a job for a medical assistant. For those of you who are in healthcare, medical assistants need certificates. Like 90% of the time, the place that you're working at will ask for a certificate. But I applied anyway, because I'm like, it can't hurt, You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I applied, and then I forgot about it. I prayed for it. I'm like, God, would you please just get me this job? But then I continued applying to other jobs, and then another job called me and said, we want to hire you. I said, okay, great. It was at a hospital, but it didn't feel right. I went to the interview. They even told me that, as I was at the interview, they even told me, we're looking for someone who can fill the spot of someone who left because they want to gain more clinical experience to go to medical school. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm here for. So you're saying I shouldn't keep this job? But because I was so impatient, I decided to take the job, even though every fiber of my being was telling me, there's something so much better, don't take the job. I still took it, because I don't like to be unprepared. I like to tell people I never run out of cards in my deck. I always have a plan A through Z. And I didn't trust not taking this job because there was something better. So I filled out the paperwork. I handed in all my documents, and then right when I was scheduled to take my shot, the medical assistant job called, and they said, hey, can you come in for an interview? I was shocked. Like, I don't have a medical certificate. I've never taken vitals before. All I have is a paper degree that says I'm good in this subject. That's about it. So I said, of course, yeah, I'll come in. And so the woman interviews me, and it seemed like it went well, and she asked me if I have any questions. And she has my resume in front of her. And she tells me, hey, are any questions? And I ask her, I'm like, do you guys hire people without any medical background all the time? Like, is this normal? And she's like, yeah, we do this because we really want to help medical students on their journey. And I'm like, wow. And she's like, yeah, we'll train you on the job. You don't need a certificate. Just come as you are. And I was like, oh my gosh. And at that point, I knew. So at that point, I knew, I was like, this was the job that I was supposed to wait for. Now imagine at the other job, they have parking pass. It's at a hospital, so you have to pay for a parking pass. That parking pass is like $200. Imagine if I had put that $200 down, and it's non-refundable too. Imagine if I would have put that $200 down because I was impatient and I couldn't wait and I didn't have any faith that God would put me in a better situation. I would have been devastated. That's $200. Who here can lose $200? No problem. I would have been devastated. But it would have been my fault because throughout the first interview, I felt God telling me, don't take this job. It's not the right one for you. And I wouldn't listen because I was impatient and I thought nothing better could come than this job. But because God is so gracious and merciful, God hadn't let me put my debit card information on there for them to take out the $200. Instead, I just called them and said, unfortunately, I can't accept your offer. And that just shows how how gracious God is, because he can let you go so far. He could have let me put all my information in. He could have let me start that first day and then get the call, and then had to put in 2 weeks in this long process. But instead, he saved me from getting that other job. So the moral of the story is I should have had faith. I should have put my weight on God the same way that I put my weight in everything else. I should have had faith that the same God that told Noah to build an ark, even though there was absolutely no rain, I should have had faith in that God. I should have had faith in the same God that gave Sarah a child, even when she thought she was too old to bear a child. And I should have had faith in the same God that are able to give pilots and captains and drivers the ability to get me to my destination. And I should have had something called undoubtable faith, because I can have faith, but there's something about undoubtable faith where you put your whole weight on God and you just let him bring you to the place that you're destined to be. There's a pastor that I listen to sometimes. His name is Pastor Todd. And he says it's not faith if you can see it. So we have to have faith, believe in something we cannot see, and we have to put our weight on God. And I'll leave everyone with this verse. It's from James chapter 2, verse 19. It says, "You have faith, for you believe that there is one God. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in fear. How foolish. Can't you see that faith without good deeds is useless?" So that concludes my message.